INFJs have a deep desire to be understood. This probably comes from the fact that they always try to understand other things. We are NI dominant, which means we are always looking for the meaning in everything. We're looking for different perspectives, we're looking for deeper understandings, reading between the lines, anything that's not as it initially comes across as. We think it's important to find meaning. It shows that we are interested and that we care about the subject or the person. Therefore, that means that when people try to understand us, it means that they care about us. It takes time to figure people out, to know their idiosyncrasies, to know their values, beliefs, thoughts and feelings. It's not something you can learn in a few hours, a few days, sometimes even not in a few years. And we know that as INFJs we are very complex beings and are very difficult to understand. So it means a lot when someone takes that time, no matter how long, to try to understand who we are and what we stand for. It means that we must be important to someone if they take that time to get to know us and to understand us. Because of our NI dominance, we naturally want to understand things, and because of our secondary FE, that is often aimed towards people, so we naturally want to understand other people, how they work, what makes them tick, what they love and what they don't like, their values and their experiences. It's very fascinating to us. This isn't always a conscious thing. Sometimes we do it without even realising. Oftentimes we can just be walking down the street and realise that we've analysed several things about someone without even realising. Most, if not all, INFJs have spent a large part of their lives being misunderstood by other people. We know that we think very differently to how other people do. Our motivations are very different. The fact that we see through the eyes of NI is very different because it's not a very common function to have, especially not at the top. We can accept if it's a simple misunderstanding. We don't mind if the people are willing to try and to learn about us, and to overcome that misunderstanding. But when it's willful ignorance, when people choose that they don't want to actually understand us, that they'd rather just see things through their points of view, and not take into account that anybody else could potentially have a different point of view, that's when there becomes a problem. It is completely natural for everybody to think that other people must think like they do. We always go through that. That's where a lot of miscommunication comes in, because we see things a certain way and we assume that everybody else must. It's not easy to try and imagine how other people think things through, because it's something we do so unconsciously. If it was a conscious thing, then we may be able to try and change that, but because it's just the way we see things through our own eyes, we don't understand how anything could be different. As INFJs, we naturally want to understand everything. We are intuitive, which means we look below the surface, we read between the lines, and we don't take things at face value. We are NI dominant, which means that we are always looking for a deeper meaning, the other sides, the different perspectives that people have. We are looking for understanding, and we want to know as much as we possibly can about a topic, because we find it interesting. INFJs are aimed towards people, INTJs are aimed towards things. We also have TI, which means that we like to take things apart to understand how they work. Because we have NI as well, that means it's often theoretical things, so philosophical ideas, concepts, beliefs, values. We like to take them apart because we want to understand what makes them the way they are, why people believe in them, where it came from, and any strengths or weaknesses about having a said point of view. Having a combination of all of these means that we are very inquisitive. We always ask why. We can't just accept that that's the way things are, because that's the way it's always been done. We can't accept face value. This quest for understanding is a natural part of who we are. It's been prevalent since probably before we could even talk. I know for a fact my favourite question when I was younger was why. Not because I didn't accept authority or I didn't believe the other person. I just wanted to understand the deeper perspective. Why is it the way it is? Why do we have to do that? Why couldn't we do something different? Because this is so intrinsic to INFJs, it can be easy for us to naturally assume that other people think the way that we do. That everybody else wants to understand things like we do. We see the benefits of understanding other people's perspectives, so we think that everybody else should and must do the same thing. But because we are so rare, it is unlikely we will meet someone with a deep desire for understanding as we have. Other intuitives will have a similar desire, but they may be for different reasons, such as ENFPs wanting to understand people on a deeper level because they value that connection, and you can't have a connection if you don't understand the other person. Or INTJs wanting to understand because it interests them, or they need to know the answer so they can make a more qualified logical decision. I find that it almost seems ironic that INFJs desire to be understood so much, because we are such a rare type. Yes, other types can understand us to a certain extent, or get a part of us. My ENFP mum understands my desire to help other people, because her FI can understand my FE to a certain extent. My ENTJ partner gets how I think with my NI and how I can predict things that are happening, because he has secondary NI as well. My INTP uncle understands my need for justice with his dominant TI, and how much I love problem solving. But no one person will get every single part of me. I don't know why I want it. It's not exactly logical. Of course nobody else can completely understand every facet of me. Nobody else has gone through the same things I have. Nobody else shares my experiences. Nobody else has the same motivations as me. Nobody else is completely like me. Even if I met another INFJ, they wouldn't be much like me at all. They'd share the same characteristics of personality type, but their experiences would be so different from my own that it would have shaped our personalities in very different ways. So why do I still want it? I think it's part of the human experience to want to be understood by other people. It's why we seek identities and form certain groups, such as becoming vegan, protesting for a cause, joining a certain profession, becoming a parent, joining the army. So many things give us an identity and help us to make a connection whereby we can understand others who are going through a similar experience to our own. We can talk with other parents about the sleepless nights and how difficult they can be. We can talk to other police officers about the stress and the difficulties of the job. We can talk to other vegans about animal rights and how important they are to us, and so on. It gives us a common ground, and that leads to understanding. It won't be in all areas of our lives, but in that one common area we get each other. And that can often be enough. Everybody wants to be understood, no matter what personality type. Maybe it's just more prevalent where the numbers are smaller in each type, because it is less likely that we will meet somebody else who is the same as us, or at least very similar. ISTJs and ISFJs will also still want to be understood, but there is a much higher chance that they will meet fellow ISTJs and ISFJs, and that they were likely to find someone who shares the same interests as them, or who has similar experiences to the ones they have. It is much more difficult for myself as an INFJ to come across another INFJ in my life, let alone one who has similar experiences and has the same values as me. Maybe that's what makes it so important for INFJs. Because we are so rare, we understand that it is incredibly valuable to have somebody else understand us. But I think that's where we can miss the obvious. We can be so busy looking for tiny little ways we can identify with others and how we can become understood, that we forget that, as human beings, every single one of us has an innate desire to be understood, and that we can actually connect to each other on that very cause. We can identify with each other just because we all wish to be understood. We can empathize, we can share our experiences, and we can help each other just from that one thing. And I think that's the beauty of it, the simplicity of how we all have a desire to be understood. That's what unites us, that's what keeps us together. And that's what I find so fascinating. Anyway, as always, thank you for your time.